I want to talk to you about how to get a job you'll really like. And let me begin by saying this. I think this is a more important topic than anything that I teach at this law school. We're talking about the rest of your life. We're talking about your professional satisfaction. We're talking about your happiness. These should be non-negotiable, irreducible minima for you in how you approach the summer, next summer, work during the school year, next year, if you're first-year students, and the year after that. And then, of course, your selection of a permanent job. You have worked so hard to get here. You are working so hard here. You're spending so much money to be here. You're spending so much time to be here. The idea, conceptually, that you could end up unhappy in a job is repugnant to me. I would feel like it would be a tragedy, and that's not an exaggeration, if any of you ended up unhappy in your job. You all deserve to be happy in your job. You've earned it. You've worked so hard. But now you just have to take the next step necessary to assure that you'll be happy in your job. So, what goes into being professionally satisfied? What could we maybe agree might be some of the things? Come on in. We have plenty of room. We have plenty of room. We have pizza. We have Pepsi. We have seats. We have seats here. 1, 2, 3. Come on down, please. So what are some of the common ingredients that would make us happy in our jobs? So I want to go through a little bit of survey research and see what you think about the survey research and see whether it applies to you in how you might approach your own professional satisfaction and your own happiness. So there was an article that appeared in the ABA Journal called Are You Happy Now? Are You Happy Now? By Jill Chanen, C-H-A-N-E-N. And I'm just going to go through 5 questions and answers. And I'd like to ask you how you would answer these questions. And then let's see what we can learn about ourselves from these answers. First, the National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago surveyed workers in 198 occupations, asking whether they were, quote, very satisfied. Right here's a seat, right here, for you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We have lots of seats. We have a seat here. Come on down. Mr. Tucker, come on down here, right here. Got a seat for you. Okay. So, among those satisfied were lawyers, doctors, accountants, clergy, and teachers. What is the order in which folks in those professions indicated they were very satisfied with their job? Let's just start with, what was the number one most professionally satisfying job among those 4 choices? Again, the choices are lawyers, doctors, accountants, clergy, teachers. What do you think was number 1?
Teacher.
Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of clergy, and then I'm hearing some teachers. I'm hearing a lot of clergy. So who votes number 1, clergy? Okay, who votes number 1, teachers? Okay, so a majority of the room said clergy, but a lot of students said teachers. How many say accountants? 1. Okay. How many say lawyers? There's 1 hand for accountants. How many say lawyers? Ouch. No hands. Okay. Are you guessing, sir? No. So you're not guessing. Okay. How many say doctors? Okay, 1 hand. All right. So number 1, clergy. You were right. Number 2, teachers. Okay. Why? Why do people who are clerics or teachers report higher comparative levels of professional satisfaction as opposed to accountants, doctors, and lawyers? Yes, sir.
They're striving for a higher purpose, like God, or overall education of our society. They see it's more readily apparent.
Okay. What's not a motivating factor based upon those answers?
Money.
Money. Money. Isn't that interesting? Making more money is countervailing there, isn't it? Anybody else a thought on why people in the clergy or teachers report high levels of professional satisfaction? As opposed to accountants, which are last, by the way. Last. Why would accountants be last and clergy be first? Yes. Derek.
Accountant's kind of like an isolating job.
It's an isolating job.
A lot of social interaction.
No social interaction. Correct. You're not working with your clients. The clergy work so closely with their clients. I love teaching. My students know I love teaching. Why? I get to work with my students, right? Teachers get to work with their students directly. Accountants are very distant from their clients. I'm laughing because I've never met my accountant. I email with him all the time. I've never met him. Okay, I don't think that's that unusual for accountants. Doctors are ahead of lawyers in this survey, probably because doctors have more direct contact with their patients than lawyers do with their clients. Doctors see a lot of patients every day. Lawyers don't see their clients as frequently as doctors. Okay, next question. Okay, here we go. U.S. News and World Report. Ever hear of them? Okay. Place American law schools into 4 tiers, with the first tier schools being the most highly ranked. This is the way the question reads. Lawyers who report the highest levels of career satisfaction are graduates of law schools ranked in which tier? Which tier? Reports the highest level of professional satisfaction. Thoughts? Thoughts? Okay, may I see just a hand? Somebody raise their hand and tell me what you think. Yes. Charlotte.
I would guess tier 1, just given there's more opportunities to survey tier 1 schools. So I think tier.
No, this was a very good survey.
Okay.
Very comprehensive.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no issue about comprehensiveness. You want to keep your answer, or do you want to?
I think I still would say tier 1.
Okay. Who agrees with Charlotte that tier 1 graduates report the highest level of career satisfaction? Okay. Almost no one says that. Okay. Who says tier 2? Okay. Are you hoping it's tier 2? Is that what you're hoping? Is that what you're hoping? Okay. And so I saw roughly 30 hands, maybe 30% of the room raised their hand for that. How about tier 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Fewer hands, maybe 20 hands. How about tier 4?
That's not all the hands.
Almost no hands went up. And quite a few of you did not vote, which I get that because I don't think the answer is readily apparent. Almost no hands for tier 4. Interesting that almost no hands for tier 1, almost no hands for tier 4. Okay. The correct answer is tier 4.
What?
Tier 4. Okay. Who wants to immediately rush out of the room and run down to the bursar's office, ask for a refund, and see if we can I won't say the name of a tier 4 school. I'm being recorded, so I'm not going to say the name of a tier 4 school. But if we can be happier at a tier 4 school, why wouldn't we go there? Right? Is that a fair question? I think that's a fair question. Why would graduates of tier 4 law schools report higher levels of career satisfaction?
I would imagine because the expectation and the actuality are more evenly matched about outcomes.
Harrison, I'm a little uncomfortable with that answer.
Okay.
It sounds like a polite way of saying that you think you're going to have a lousy career if you go to a tier 4 law school, so you're not disappointed afterwards. Is that what you're trying to say?
I would say maybe you don't imagine yourself getting the best career after tier 4 law school, and so you're happy with
Yeah, that's a restatement of what I just said. Yeah, okay. Yes.
Because the percentage of people still working in law to graduating from a Tier 4 law school are people who chose law rather than people who are just trying to pay off their students.
That's an interesting suggestion, but the question is referring to lawyers. So I do think it's restricted to people who are in the practice. But that's provocative. Yes, sir.
Maybe a lot of people at Tier 4 schools go into smaller practice where they're initially able to meet with clients, unlike large firms where only once you're a partner or high associate you can get paid time with clients.
Yes, and so that for the benefit of the rest of the room and for the video, the answer, which I agree with as the correct answer, is that folks who graduate from fourth tier, bottom law schools, they end up in smaller places, and let's be honest about it, okay? They end up in smaller places because they don't have the option, for the most part, of working in a big firm and making $190,000 a year as a starting salary. So it's just not an option. And they end up in a smaller place, and they end up being happier because they're in a smaller place. I think that is the correct answer. Okay, by the way, only 27% of graduates from top 10 law schools say they are very satisfied with their career choice. Only 27%. I give this talk at a lot of law schools, including a bunch of top 10 law schools, and that's a depressing moment when I read that out, because that means that 73% of the students in that room are likely to not be very satisfied with their career choice, at least if they don't listen to me. Question 3. Which of the following factors in the work of a lawyer correlates least with higher reported levels of career satisfaction? Which correlates least? Ready for the answers, for the choices. The degree to which the lawyer sees his or her work as contributing to the betterment of society. B, the latitude the lawyer has to make key decisions about the shape of work products and services. C, the amount of creative challenge his or her work affords. D, the frequency and quality of interactions in the lawyer's work. E, the lawyer's level of income. Which of those factors correlates least with career satisfaction? Income is correct. Income is correct. That correlates least with career satisfaction. You're starting to see a trend here. Starting to see a trend. Okay. Fourth question. Which order of law practice corresponds to how satisfied lawyers say they are with their careers? So there's 3 options here. Big firm, public sector work, and then third, small or solo practice. So I'll make this part maybe a little bit easier. I want to ask you which reports the highest level of career satisfaction. Which area reports the lowest level of career satisfaction?
Big law.
Big law, yes. Big law is correct. Big law, of the 3 choices, report the lowest level of career satisfaction. Public sector work and small firm practice report the highest levels. They're very close. Public sector work a bit ahead of small firm practice. Okay. Listen to this statistic. 44% of big firm lawyers are satisfied with their career choice. Now let's just focus on that statistic for a second. 44%. That 44% does not include as the sample size the people who've left the big firm and are someplace else, right? Because they're not big firm lawyers. They were big firm lawyers. They're not now when the survey is taken. Presumably they left big firm practice because they found something else to be more potentially satisfying. Or stated differently, they were unsatisfied with their job. They would have fallen in the 56% who would have been unsatisfied had they stayed, which would make the number actually even higher. And it's 44% of incumbent big firm lawyers who say they are satisfied. It's not very satisfied. It's satisfied. So a minority of lawyers currently in big firms say they are satisfied with their work. A minority. And let me add to that 80% of lawyers who matriculate from law school to big firms leave in the first 6 years. 80%. So this survey is not counting that 80% who may have already left the big firm in their first 6 years of practice. Okay. Last question. What aspect of the actual practice of law most disappoints lawyers when compared to their expectations at the start of their careers? Let me just say, this is kind of a difficult question because you're being asked to say what you think lawyers who are my age say that they have found least satisfying about their careers compared to what they thought it would be like when they were your age. Okay? So here are the 4 choices. Their level of financial remuneration, right, their pay. Second, the intellectual challenge of their job. Third, their ability to contribute to the public good. Fourth, the quality of their relationships with their colleagues. Which of those aspects of the actual practice of law most disappoint lawyers, like my age, compared to what they thought it was going to be like when they were your age? Yes?
Probably the money.
No. No, the money has not disappointed them. They've made as much money or more money than they thought they would. Yes?
I think their ability to affect public good.
Yes, their ability to affect the public good. That is what has disappointed them the most compared to what they thought it would be like when they were law students and perhaps, somewhat idealistic law students about what they could do with their careers. Only 16% of lawyers say that their expectations were met in relation to their ability to contribute to the public good. That's a kind of a sad statistic, isn't it? 16%. So what are the unifying characteristics of the answers to these questions that we've gone over? Well, that most people are going to tend to be happier if they're in a small place, if they have a direct connection with their clients, if they can contribute to the public good. That money is a negative correlative in terms of professional satisfaction. It's not just that it doesn't matter much, it's actually that people who make more end up being unhappier than people who make less. Taking all comers. Okay. Does anything here surprise you? Did any of that surprise you? What I just went through? I'm seeing negative head shakes. Right. All that's really happened with going through this survey research is to validate what probably every one of you already knew in your heart and in your mind, that you would be most likely to be happy in your job if you have a connection with people and that you're doing work that you feel good about, where it's helping others and it's in a place where you know the people you're working with and the people who you're serving. Those things are so fundamental to happiness. It has nothing to do with being a lawyer or a law student. It's just the way human beings function. So, do you think that applies to you? Do you think these answers and what we've just gone over applies to you and what's most likely to make you happy in your life? Or do you think that you would be an outlier in that regard? That you'd be happier working in a place that would be more anonymous, where you have no contact with people, maybe no windows in the room, I'll cease with the analogies because it get depressing, especially around lunchtime. But I'm not seeing anybody say, I want that job, right? I mean, don't we all sort of feel like the kind of job that these people say they want to have is the kind of job that maybe you'd want to have? Okay, so how do you get that job? How do you get the job that has those qualities? So I have a 4-step program for you to think about. And it's guaranteed to work. And I know what the word guarantee means. Okay? It's guaranteed to work because it always works. It always works. I've given this talk for years. Lots of students have done it. It's always worked. No one has ever reported to me it didn't work. Somebody who wants to report to me it doesn't work, you'll be the first one. Step one. Figure out what you think you like in the law. For you first-year students, okay, you've been here a little while. You took courses first semester. You're taking courses second semester. You certainly probably know what you don't like. You probably have some idea of some of the things you like. Second and third-year students, you've got a much better idea of what you like. Isolate what you think are the top 1 or 2 areas of law that you think you might like to work in. Okay? Step 2, where do you want to live? Nick Kroner wants to live in Southern California. There's just no talking him out of that. So, and Nick knew what area of law he wanted to work in. And so, that's probably true of most of you. Most of you know, hey, I want to live in the Bay Area, or I want to live in Spokane, Washington, or Chicago, or you have some idea. So then step 3 is, now that we've gotten through steps 1 and 2, that is to say, you know what kind of work you want to do, and you know where you want to do it. Now you go about the business of researching the best places to do the kind of work you want to do in the place where you want to do it. And may I say, I think all of you are very good at that kind of research. That kind of research you can do on your phone or on your laptop, right? I mean, if you want to be a trust and estates lawyer in Spokane, Washington, it isn't that hard to figure out the good firms for trust and estates work in Spokane, Washington. You type in trust and estates lawyer, Spokane, Washington, into Google or ChatGPT, right? And then you go in and you look at the website, and you're all very good, aren't you, at looking at websites? And you can figure out baloney from the real thing. And just for those who are wondering about that, in law practice, if you're talking about a private firm, you're looking for lawyers who have real professional accomplishments in litigation, who've tried cases, for example, or if they're in trust and estates work, who hold positions of importance in bar committees and the like, and have written in the field, and otherwise have demonstrated excellence, as distinguished from lawyer websites that are like what I would call a trust me website, right? The blue suit, the white shirt, the red tie, but no real accomplishments, nothing to speak of, bring me your case, but no backup for why they've been successful. Okay, so that's been step 3, right? You can then isolate those firms in that place. And when I say firm, I mean legal employer, generally speaking, in that place where you want to work. And then you need to write them letters. You notice I said letters. I didn't say emails. I said letters. And here's how you do that. First of all, you print up some stationery. Real nice. UC Law SF. Make it nice. And send letters to 8, 10, 12, 15 potential employers. Now, this is work. You have to lean into this. And write something personal about the lawyer or the law firm or the potential employer to whom you're writing. It demonstrates you've done your research, you know who they are, you admire them, and why you're interested. And ask them for either an interview or for a job for the summer or permanently, or for an informational interview. It doesn't matter how you split that up. You could do 2/3 job, 1/3 informational. You could be half and half. Don't worry about that aspect. It's easy to convert an informational interview into a job interview. Hey, it's been done with me many times. I'll get email letters from law students who want an informational interview. I give them the informational interview. I find after 10 minutes, I think they want a job here. And I say, do you want a job here? Is that why you contacted me? Yeah, actually I did. I want a job. Oh, okay, fine. I'm not resentful about that. They want to get in the door. They want to get my attention. They think they'll get my attention by saying informational interview. I respect that. And what I'll say is, okay, well, I don't do the first interviews of potential summer associates or lawyers here. Here's the person who does, and I'll be sure that you get an interview. It's fine. You're not going to be rejected for saying that. And you will get some informational interviews from whom you would not get a job interview. Because some people think in their minds, hey, I'm not really looking to hire anybody, but I'll be happy to talk to the law student. The main point is people will respond to you. They'll respond to you. How do I know that? Okay, a couple reasons. First of all, you're going to follow up. You're going to call and you're going to follow up. You're going to make people say no to you. Make people say no to you. It's very important. No is a better answer than no answer. Right? So follow up. Call the lawyer, call his assistant, follow up with an email. By the way, when I say letter, I mean letter, again, mailed, letter. But also send it by email. So put at the top, U.S. mail and email. You're sending it this way because we lawyers, and I'm in practice, we don't open emails, a lot of us don't, I don't, from people whose addresses I don't recognize. Because I've been told by our IT people that there's viruses and worms and so forth, and I'm not supposed to open anything that I don't know where it came from. And a lot of times I just forget, I'm supposed to send it down to the IT people for them to open it. I don't know how they open it without creating a problem, but that's their issue. But I often don't even bother to do that. So I don't even see stuff I probably should see. On the other hand, I read all my mail. Why? I get no mail. None of us get any mail because everything is email today. But we all still have inboxes. We all still have legal assistants or somebody who opens our mail. And even if we're not there, the mail is still scanned for us and sent to us. We're all seeing our mail. The only mail I get, honestly, is advertising circulars, an occasional letter from an inmate asking for representation. I read all of those carefully. I get no mail. Otherwise, I don't get letters from law students. I'm a co-founding partner of a 50-lawyer firm in Philadelphia. We're doing okay. You think law students would send me letters asking for a job? I don't get those letters. If I get 5 a year, that would be a lot. Why? Because with all due respect to the Career Services Office, almost no one gets a job outside of Career Services. Almost no one takes my pathway. So what happens is that a very high percentage of law students, including at this law school, are competing for the tiny sliver of jobs that are represented by the couple of hundred people that come here to interview. You're competing against all your classmates for those law firm jobs, and believe me, they're all going across the bay to Berkeley, and they're going down the peninsula to Santa Clara, and to Stanford, and they're going to McGill, and they're going down to USC and UCLA, and they're going up to Seattle and Portland, and then they're going to Denver, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But those, 250 thereabouts, legal employers who come here to interview, is that about the number? Yeah. Okay. They represent less than 1% of all American legal employers. So a lot of you are competing with each other and these other law students at many fine schools for this 1% sliver of the marketplace. And meanwhile, the other 99% plus majority American legal employer doesn't get contacted by law students. And if they got contacted, they would be like me. They would pay attention. If I get a letter from a law student, I pay attention. I admire the initiative. They will get an audience. Maybe not, with me, but somebody in our law firm. I think most lawyers feel that way if they actually get the contact from the law student. If you send out 10, 12, 15 letters, you are going to get interviews. You are going to get offers. Now, back to the apocryphal trust and estates practice in Spokane. Okay. How many trust and estates firms from Spokane come down here to interview? None. How many firms from Spokane come down here to interview? Any? None. How many trust and estates firms come here to interview? None. Right. So if you want to be in the trust and estates practice, forget about Spokane. There's nobody to talk to through the OCI process. Okay. And the same thing is true if we're talking about the personal injury space, the wrongful injury space, which is my area of practice. Right? How many wrongful injury firms come here to interview? Almost none. Never seen one. Okay. There are a lot of wrongful injury lawyers in San Francisco. Right? Yes, exactly. But they're not coming here to interview. Why not? Because they're small firms. Because they don't have a sophisticated OCI process as part of their gestalt of their firm. Because, by the way, because of a lot of bad reasons too. Because they hire the person across the table from them in a deposition, or because they hire the partner's son, or because they hire the neighbor's kid. In fact, a lot of things that simply reinforce existing social and demographic stereotypes in our society. And those aren't good reasons at all. But you can help break that too. Because actually those firms do want to have a more diverse firm. They're just, a lot of them, respectfully to the camera, too lazy to do it. They're better off with a more diverse firm. If they're going in and trying cases, they're trying cases to diverse juries. So it makes a lot of sense to have a diverse firm. And the smart firms do know that. It's just, there's a lot of inertia around small firm practice, even around medium-sized firm practice in terms of the hiring process. But the firms will talk to you, and they will, and a lot of them will offer you summer positions or clerkships during the school year. And if you get to know them and they get to know you, there's a high likelihood that they'll offer you a permanent position. Now, there are a couple of elephants in the room. So one elephant in the room is, yeah, professor, but what about, which of those firms is going to offer me $190,000 a year starting salary? Because I have student loans, and my grades are pretty good, and I think I can get a job in a big firm. And so I know that I have, I saw your statistics and so forth and so on, but what about that? What about that? Okay, I want to say a bunch of things to you about that. So, number one, there are a lot of firms that aren't big firms that don't come here that will pay you what you can make working for a big firm. That's a fact. It's a secret, but it's a fact. Who? Well, I'll give you one firm. This is not meant to draw applications, okay? But one firm. My law firm. Why? Because we want to hire the best lawyers we possibly can. And we know we have to compete with the big firm, crazy, insane starting salaries. Those starting salaries, just to be clear, have no relationship to the value of the young lawyer in the office. They are simply reflective of what they can build that lawyer's time. But that doesn't reflect the value of the lawyer to the client that hires them. That's a whole separate scandal that would require another hour of discussion. But so honestly, truly, that young lawyer in their first year in our office is not worth $190,000 a year. But I have to pay them that to get them. They're worth that and more after they've been trained, for sure, but not in the first year. But I recognize the economic realities, and so I will do what's necessary to get that lawyer in our firm. There are lots of other firms like mine across the country that will do that. We just don't do OCI. Because we don't need to, for one thing. We don't have an incoming class of 50 lawyers. We're not a 2,000 lawyer firm. We have an incoming class of 1 or 2 or 3 lawyers. We don't need to go around the country and do OCI. So, yeah, 30 lawyer firms, 40 lawyer firms, 60 lawyer firms, 5 lawyer firms, 10 lawyer firms. If they want you, they're going to pay you. That's point one. Point two. If you're in Spokane, Washington, you don't need to make $190,000 a year to have a $190,000 a year San Francisco type lifestyle, right? I don't know what that number is, but it's something well less than $190,000, right? You could look it up on the internet, probably around $120,000 or $130,000. Point three. Yes, you could get an offer that doesn't work for you at a place where you want to go to work. It's true. You might want to go to work someplace here that is offering you $110,000 a year or $100,000 a year, and you have big loans, and you just can't make it work given the cost of housing in San Francisco to work there. You know what you have to do? Tell them. I really want to come to work here. I can't do it for $110,000 a year. There's a very good chance they will increase your salary to meet your needs because they want you. They don't know what your loans are until you tell them. Again, this falls in the category of make them say no to you. If they want you, they'll pay you. And by the way, if they don't want you enough to pay you what you need to work there, better you know it now than later. Right? So this will work. You will get a good job that you are very likely to like in a place you're likely to want to be at a salary that you can live with. Okay. Second kind of elephant in the room. Risk adversity. Risk adversity. How many people here want to admit that they are risk preferential? Who is risk preferential in this room? Hooray. Hooray. I'd love to see that. Who wants to admit that they are risk adverse? Wow, okay. Okay, so for those of you who are risk preferential, I think you ought to seriously consider working for a big firm. Because that would have to be your calculus. Your calculus would have to be, I can beat the odds. I'm the lawyer who can beat the odds. I'm the one who can be the 1 out of 5 who will stick it out after 6 years. I'm the one who will be in the 44% who will be satisfied. I can do it. Okay? If you are risk adverse, okay, I'm risk adverse. All right, I was risk adverse when I was in your position. That's why I went to work for a small firm. Because I knew them. I worked there for the summer. I trusted them. I knew the guy who was signing my paycheck. I knew the work I'd be doing. I knew my clients. And I thought this was the least risky way for me to proceed. I think what I'm suggesting to you is the least risky way for you to proceed. The most risky way is the way when you are saying to yourself in advance, and how many people here are willing to say this to yourself, or maybe even out loud, I know I'm going to be unhappy in the job I'm going to go to. Wow. If that's true, you're not only risk preferential, you're masochistic. Right? Don't do that, please. Don't do that. Make your first job be the job that you want. It's not your second job. And by the way, respectfully, if you go to work for a big firm, and then you want to leave and take the job you really want, like a firm like my size, it's going to be harder than you think. We hire a lot of people out of big firms. I interview them all the time. And I tell lawyers, like Morgan Lewis or Deckard or wherever, I'm going to offer you a job. I'm going to tell you why I'm offering you a job. Because of your aptitude. Because you went to a fine law school and because you had good grades. And that is reasonably predictive. It's not a strong correlative, but it's a weak correlative. It's not nothing. Good grades and a good law school is a weak correlative. It's something that I look for. And I say to them, and you have good personal skills, and that I can tell. I'm not hiring you because of your experience. Because you've just told me in 5 years at Deckert, you've tried no cases. You second chaired no cases. You've taken no depositions. You have defended no depositions except in a second chair position, which is meaningless. You've done legal research and writing, you've done document review, and you've essentially been, at this point I don't say, but it's just for the benefit of last in the room, you've essentially been the 8th person on a 7-person team for 5 years. And I'm not hiring you for any of that because it's not worth anything to me. I'm hiring you because I think I can train you and make you into a good trial lawyer, and because you seem very smart, you got good grades, you went to a good law school, and you got good personal skills. Those are the ingredients of being a good trial lawyer, pretty much, right? So what worries me about it is if you go to a big firm, among other things, aside from not being happy there, is are you going to develop transferable and marketable skills? Because I don't see it. Now, does that mean that you can't be successful and happy at a big firm? No. I think there's 2 pathways for success and happiness at a big firm. I'm going to mention them to you. 1, if you answer the same way most of the rest of you answered on that survey I went through, there's still a way to be happy at a big firm. And here's how. You make your own deal in the firm. You get yourself into a niche practice, the practice that you want to be in. That's going to tend to be in a very small group within the firm. And it's probably going to be in a place where you want to live. For example, I had a student who I consulted with who wanted to be in the oil and gas practice. He wanted to work at a big firm. I know the name, I'm not going to mention it. He had a deal worked out for himself to be in the Denver office in the oil and gas practice. It was a 6-lawyer group practice. They were left alone by their firm to do their work. I think that was an excellent approach. I think there's a very good chance he'll be very happy in that practice. But remember what that practice effectively is. That's effectively a small practice. It's effectively a 6-person law firm within the bigger law firm. But there, in that niche, he knows who he's working with. He knows who his clients will be. He will develop transferable and marketable skills. If he's not happy with the firm, he can leave. He can go off on his own, start his own practice, go work for one of his clients, or move laterally to another firm that has an oil and gas practice because he's developed transferable and marketable skills within that niche. That's fine. I'm for that. And I've talked to some of you, not you per se, but law students at this law school who've been able to strike deals like that. That's okay with me. And the other part about it is that I've had students who I really do think they're just going to be happier in a more monastic environment. And if that's you, then that's fine. I think a big firm is a good place for that kind of a set of priorities in a person's life. But that's just going to tend not to be that many of us. And so I think the bottom line of it is, hey, follow your heart. Seriously. Don't follow somebody else's conception of what you should do. You know what you like. You know who you want to be. You know where you want to do it. Go do it. Let the marketplace bend to you. You have a lot of leverage. I don't know that you appreciate how much leverage you have. This is the first time probably most of you have had leverage. But you are law students at a terrific law school in a very prosperous state, in a very prosperous part of the state, in a still very strong law job environment. Not quite as strong maybe as last year, but still very strong. If you work this hard, you will have many, many options. But if you work, and if you work it the way I'm talking about working it, you're going to have many options that are going to be good for you. They're going to make you happy. And that's what it's really going to be all about. Okay, I've talked for long enough. Questions? Comments? Yes, Charlotte.
I'm curious about training opportunities, because I think one thing that is talked about a lot is that big firms offer big orientation periods where you have a very organized training opportunity, and so and then working at a smaller firm, training is maybe a little less structured. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, your training should begin in this law school. You've got 3 years here. The truth is that law school education could be accomplished easily within 2 years. You need to take at least the third year and maybe part of the second year to train yourself. That means if you want to be a trial lawyer, to do things like clinic and the like, get yourself in a position so you can hit the ground running when you become a practitioner. California is extremely generous in what they legally permit law students to do, much more so than many other states. So you're going to get a lot of your training right here. That's point number one. Point number two, yeah, I've heard that about big firms. I've never seen the reality of it. Yeah, they may have orientation things and the like, but it doesn't translate into what I'm talking about. When I'm interviewing the fifth-year lawyer at Deckert and he tells me he's taken no depositions and tried no cases or even second-chaired a case, hasn't even argued a motion. Okay, well, what was the training exactly? I don't understand how it translates into having the skills necessary to be in a trial practice. So I feel like a lot of that is sort of for public dissemination, but not really the reality of it. Now, on the other hand, you go work for a big firm, and I was talking to one of you, I'm not going to say who it was, but today, 45 minutes ago, and she said to me that she was going to be working for the summer for a sole practitioner. Okay. So can I just say to you that if you go work coming out of law school for a sole practitioner, oh my goodness, are you going to get trained immediately? Because there aren't enough people in the office to do this stuff. Of course, you're going to be doing ultra responsible work immediately because there's no choice. Now, that might be a little, anxiety producing. And I don't mind saying that when I went to start a practice, I was in that situation where I was thrown into stuff, and I remember, feeling like, oh my God, I don't know any of this. And so you got to ask questions and you got to work through it. But it'll be fine for you. You'll learn. You'll learn on the job. You'll learn from your colleagues. You'll learn, if you're working for a sole practitioner, from your sole practitioner boss. Or in a small firm. My firm was 12 lawyers when I started, the firm I worked in, not my firm, quote unquote. I was, across the hall in other lawyers' offices constantly. And just like when I had a little more experience, lawyers would come to see me. There's that informal mentoring. That's what works. That will be fine. I'm more interested, Charlotte, in you getting a real assignment that's going to allow you to shine and excel. And also, it's not just shine and excel for you. It's shine and excel so that you have something to say about who you are to develop your own clients, for your own LinkedIn page and your own social media and your own discussions with your friends and your former classmates and your neighbors and your family about what you're doing and how it's important. And you can talk about your professional achievements. Your training is not a professional achievement. Your professional achievement is what you've achieved for your client in some way. It doesn't need to be a trial. It can be, writing a trust document or helping with an IPO and making it happen for your clients. And then you have to market and talk about it so that you can develop your own client base so that you're not dependent upon the law firm. Because one thing's for sure, a law firm is a temporary collection of lawyers working on a temporary collection of files for a temporary collection of clients. And many old and great and famous names of law firms are no more, kaput. They went away in the recession of 2008, 2009, including some old and famous law firms in Philadelphia, where I'm from, and big firms in New York. Dewey LaBeouf famously was, 2,000 lawyers? Poof. Poof. You know who survived in those situations? The lawyers who had transferable and marketable skills. The irony is Dewey LaBeouf went poof, a 2,000 lawyer firm, and the 2-lawyer firm down the street, that's fine, because those folks can support themselves. Ironic, counterintuitive, true. Other questions?
My name is Justine.
Yes, Justine.
Thanks for speaking to us. Do you recommend any actionable steps we can take to eventually get to isolating one or two areas of law that we like?
Well, I think it's just kind of as simple as which class do you like to go to? Last semester, which class did you like going to? Which ones don't you like going to? Again, I think here also, I think the career office could help you with that as well, in having more of a conversation about other areas of practice to which you may not have been exposed. I think you should talk to more senior law students here, especially third-year law students, about areas of practice. I hope you've developed some friendships with people who are a little bit more seasoned here. But let me make an observation about this. You got to try to have a bunch of experiences for the summer. Like, I didn't want to be a criminal defense lawyer, I thought, when I was in law school, but I wanted to see what it was like so I could be sure. I didn't think I wanted to go work for a big firm when I was in law school, but I wanted to be sure. So I took my summer seriously. I think you should only work I think your summer job should be places that you could end up permanently. You don't have enough summers to experiment that much, point one. Point two, you want to try to split your summer so that you could have 4 experiences in 2 summers, so that you have something really to choose from. Now, I know that big firms won't let you split your summer. They used to back when I was a law student. They won't anymore. Why is that? They won't let you split your summer because they figured out that if they let you do that, they're dividing by 2 their chances of getting you permanently. What does that say to you about how important they think your happiness is, as opposed to their economic bottom line? That's one of the first indications to me of who's boss in that situation. But okay, if you want to go work for the big firm for the summer and that crazy salary they give you for the summer, totally out of proportion to what your value is to the firm and to its clients, but as a recruiting technique, we all know what that is, right? But if you want to do that, okay, I get it, fine. But you've got a shoulder on the front end of the summer before you start that job, and the back end of the summer. Use that shoulder. Get a job for 3 weeks someplace. A client inspector wanted to hire a couple of really good prospects who had taken a summer job at a big firm, and they offered them, this law firm offered them a 3-week shoulder job at the end of the summer. 3 weeks is enough for you to figure out if you want to go work for that place permanently. It's long enough for that place to figure out if they want to offer you a permanent job, Justine. And a big firm doesn't need 15 weeks to figure out, by the way, if they want to offer you a permanent job, and you don't need 15 weeks to decide that you want to go there. In fact, you may not need, 15 days, or even 15 hours, or 15 minutes. So, other questions? We're going to end at 1:30 no matter what. Yes? Ashley.
What do junior lawyers do every day in a big firm then? Because I'm really surprised to hear you say that, like, for 5 years you don't get any transferable skills at a big firm.
Not everywhere, but my experience has been they have not developed adequate transferable and marketable skills. What are they doing?
Yeah.
Many are doing legal research, writing memos, helping draft motions and answers. I'm talking about litigation, which is about a half of a big firm's practice. Document review, which is a nauseating concept to me, that a lawyer will be doing document review, given the fact that can be done competently by a non-lawyer. And gee, did you come here to do document review? Is that why you came to this law school, is to do document review when you leave? So that's not developmental. I do think you could get yourself in a position in a big firm where you can do more responsible work, but again, you have to strike your own bargain in the firm to do that, and that's going to be tricky. It's politically tricky to strike your own deal in a big firm. But better you know that now than end up there and be unhappy. Other questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Alana Cull. I have more of like a soft skills question about the getting them to tell you no.
Yes.
So I've had an interview get canceled twice, and I've corresponded to say, hey, like, time, look at the schedule, and they haven't replied to me. And I'm just curious how to handle that without being like a stalker.
I think what you should say is, I don't mean to be a pest, but I am so interested in working here for the summer. And then you say, why? Okay? And then you say, I know we've had a tough time connecting, and if you don't want to or can't consider me for a summer job, I certainly understand, and I respect that. But I really need to know, because you're my first choice, or you're among my top choices, and if I can't work for the firm, I need to go look for a job someplace else. I think that's putting it to them as directly as you possibly can. Also, I would try to call them. I would call them and email them. Are they here?
No, it's actually the state legislature.
Okay. Oh, well, it's the legislature. Well,
Yeah.
they don't answer anybody about anything.
I know, right?
So, yeah. But I think that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be persistent. You have to be persistent. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Last observation / comment. Yes, sir.
Just wanted to ask like really quick about this. You send out like physical letters.
Yes. Both. U.S. mail and email.
Well, so for like the actual mail, like is it basically like you take your cover letter and just print it out, or is there a whole different like format that you're supposed to do for this?
Well, again, the letter should indicate your interest in the firm, why you're interested, why this firm. It should be personalized that way. You should include your resume. By the way, you don't need to include your transcript in these letters. Okay? A lot of these firms aren't even going to ask you about your grades. I know that sounds crazy, but they're not. A lot of them aren't going to ask it. They don't have a routinized process for screening summer associates. So a lot of them will look at your resume, look at your letter / email, think about whether they have something for you to do for the summer, operate basically on a feeling about the gestalt of this, do a FaceTime interview with you, and offer you a job or not offer you a job. You don't have to give them your transcript. Obviously, if your grades are terrific, give them your transcript. If they're not terrific, don't volunteer it. Okay, last observation. I'm happy to help you, okay? You can feel free to email me for individualized thoughts. I'll ask you for your transcript of your resume because I want to see what appears to interest you, and we'll talk about what you might do. But again, I care deeply about everybody here and about succeeding, and I want to do what I can to make it happen for you. So thanks for your time today.